Okay, so this is episode 2 of my podcast here. So, we're going to be talking about today is the possible bank runs that happened. We'll break down what happened, and then I'll do a little bit of a rant what I think. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, what is today? Today is the Tuesday the 14th. So, what, like roughly 4 days ago on Friday we had Silicon Valley Bank fail, and I think it was like Silvergate and something else fail, and and that's leading to concerns about the rest of the market and what's going on. So this video is going to be about how and why that happened, and potentially what could happen, and then where our economy is going to be probably by this summer, or it's my best prediction, right? Because no one really knows. So let's take a step back. Let's. I don't want to go too far back. I'll be jumping around a little bit. There'll be a lot of information here, but I'm going to try to keep it in a way that you could, understand what's going on. And basically, you should be able to explain this, to like a teenager after we're done here, right? And you'll have a really fundamental understanding. So first step is let's go over our banking system and how it works. We run on a fractional reserve. What I've been always told is it was a 10-to-1, which means if you go to the bank and you deposit $100,000, the bank only has to hold 10,000. Now I know in recent times that's changed. I've seen like reports that as high as like 18% of deposits have to be held in cash. So that could be roughly, let's say if you put 100 grand down, it's like a 5-to-1 almost, because they have to hold almost 20,000, right? 2,000 short of 20,000 if it was 18. But the fact of the matter is the way the banks operate is, they have to lend money out, to make money, right? They don't, they take your money and they lend it out and they create debt and they hope to God that people pay, and then they get to generate crazy amounts of money. And it's a license. Each bank has pretty much a license to pretty much print, right? And that's why they become very, very profitable. In total, there's about like 5,000 small banks and like 5,000 credit unions. There's about 10,000 banks like plus total across the United States. And then we have our big four, right? We have your Bank of America, Citi, Chase, and Wells Fargo. Those are, the four that are too big to fail, but everything else is, game. So what happened with Silicon Valley Bank is they were a young startup or a younger bank that would lend to startups when other traditional banks wouldn't. Because, you come to them with a dumb idea, like, hey, I've started a company where you could rent your room, on an app, and random people are going to show up to your house and rent it. And the bank's going to be regular bank will be like, get the hell out of here, bro. So these guys, they did a lot of VC and a lot of startups, and obviously over the years, tech made stupid amounts of money because the valuations went sky high and everything was all great. Now, every single bank across the United States that I've ever walked into, you'll see a little sticker that says FDIC insured, and it's insured up to $250,000. And everybody knows that after $250,000, your dollars aren't insured anymore. After that, I mean, if the bank fails, your deposits essentially fail. And we never made a big deal about it because banks have fallen, and they've almost all the time have paid people that were over $250,000. They've paid. They made whole. And realistically, this is something that should have been addressed, during the 2008 financial crisis. They probably should have bumped FDIC insurance up to $1 million. But then the problem becomes if you bump that insurance up, the banks have to pay for it. They didn't really want to do that. So keep it at $250,000. And realistically, I mean, majority of the bank accounts in America, well over 50%, only have $40,000 at best in them. We're just living life day to day. Like, someone like me, I never have more than, if I get up to like $100,000, $200,000, it's because I'm waiting on a deal. The second the deal happens, boom, my bank account's back down to like 10, 20K, and then it builds up and I go invest right again. These guys that are holding millions of dollars are people that are like really high net worth. And it kind of just blows my mind on a number of scales, right? Like number one, let's just say hypothetically, let's keep it plain and simple. Like if you had $5 million in the bank, it's a good chunk, and you're like, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know why you would keep it in just a regular bank account where it's not earning anything unless you needed that cash to move. If your business was that big that your cash flow was that big, okay, I understand that. That makes sense, right? Because eventually someone, you got to keep your money, somewhere to be able to move it around and stuff, right? But for these other guys that were just sitting there on it, it's like you would have been better off just buying, a treasury, like a 1 year or a 6 month or a 13-week treasury every week and making something, it would just park there. So long story long, Tech did really well, and the average deposits at this bank well exceeded around 250,000. And federal regulators knew, and obviously the bank staff knew. It's right there. The data is there, right? They should have started mitigating risk, but they're like, we got 280 billion. What do we do with it, right? They couldn't loan it out back fast enough because all of their clients were already really wealthy. Like they had their houses in cash. They bought they don't really use debt. They got a lot of money in. So they're, Silicon Valley Bank is now sitting on all this cash. Like, okay, well, how do we generate a profit? What do we do? So they decided, and look, it makes sense to go out and buy a bunch of these treasury notes, right? They bought a bunch of, from what I understand, they bought a bunch of 10-year notes. So, a lot of that 280 billion, let's just say hypothetically, I don't know the exact numbers, but they took probably like 40 billion of it and they bought these 10-year treasuries. And they were under the impression that, hey, rates are probably going to be low for a long time. And, they're going to collect 1.5%, very safe. The way the bond works is if you buy a coupon, you pay $1,000. At the end of the 10 years, the government will, pay you that $1,000 back, and you get to keep, obviously, all the interest, right? And so once you buy a bond, you never, and this is going to go into the bond market a little bit too. Sorry, I'm going to nerd out, so I'm going to help you understand this. Once you buy a bond, you can never lose really on the bond as long as you're willing to hold it to the maturity, right? Because whatever that face value of that bond is, if the bond says, hey, if you give me $1,000, I'm going to pay you $1,000. Whenever that maturity ends, they're going to give you that full $1,000 back. And that's backed by the government because they're, U.S. treasuries. And the problem is the interest rate, right? And just remember, bonds, they always work in opposite direction, right? If interest rates go up, bonds go down. If rates go down, bonds go up. And that's pretty simple to understand, right? Because think about this for a second. If you put $1,000 down in January 1st of 2022, and you're like, okay, I don't know, this whole market's crazy, this whatever's crazy. Let me put $1,000 down. You put $1,000 down. And you buy a 10-year treasury at 1.5%, you're going to make roughly, what is that? I think it's $15, but I know it's really, really low. Let me just double check on my math here. 1,000 times 1.5%. Yeah, it's $15. So you're going to get paid $15 a year for the next 10 years. So that ends up being, $150. And at the end of that 10-year, you're going to get your $1,000 back. I mean, it's very, very low money. That's what it is. Now, all of a sudden, when the Federal Reserve raises rates, and so these new bonds are now starting to be issued at higher rates, right? What happens is people start selling these bonds because they're like, whoa, hold on. Excuse me, I'm only going to make $150 profit off of the $1,000 that I gave you today. Well, if I sell this bond right now and I can go get a new one, I can go get a new one at like 3%. Even if I sell this bond to you for $900, I take $100 haircut, right? But I get the next bond. I take that $900 and I put another $100 in, and I get like 3% back, right? I'm going to make $300 over the next 10 years, right? That's more than $150. And even if you factor in that $50 you lose, that's still $50 plus I would have made, right? So a lot of people start selling, and then that causes pressure. Now, if you're holding the bond, it doesn't really matter. Like the thing is, the value of your bond is going to go down because a lot of people are selling at a discount because they want to get their money out right now because they want to go buy the next bond, right? They want to buy it at the higher rate. And so you holding that $1,000 bond, your bond might be worth $700 on paper or $800 or even $900, right? You sell it, all you're going to get is $900. Why? Because your bond, when you bought it at $1,000, is only returning 1.5%. But as bonds start selling, if that 10-year starts selling, the yield naturally goes up, right? Because let's say if that bond got cut in half, now the value of that bond is only $500, right? So if somebody else comes in and they buy it for $500, they're still going to get their $15, right? Like they bought it at 1,000, right? So that means they're actually making, 3% on it from 1.5%, right? So follow me real quick. Let's explain this because I got a little confusing here. If you bought $1,000 bond and it was returning 1.5% for 10 years, you're going to make $15 a year, 1.5%, right? Now, if interest rates started going up like crazy, the new bonds that are issued obviously are going to be at a higher rate. And if you're holding this bond, you're like, I was only going to make 150. Let me sell it. And as more and more debt is issued higher, the more people are not going to want to hold this bond, the one that you bought or we bought for 1.5. The price of that bond is going to go down. You're still going to get your $1,000. You just have to hold until the 10-year mark to get your full 1,000 back. And then the only thing that sucks for you is you should have waited. You could have put that $1,000 into like a 4% bond. It would have been nicer, right? But hey, this is, we are where we are now. So as those bond prices start coming down, if you decided to sell, you're like, oh my God, I'm just going to take this L. Like, here, get it off. Give me my 500 back. And I could go do something else with this investment because I don't want to hold this and just make $15, right? So that's why, like, when you buy bonds, you have to be ready to hold for the long time because things are going to go, up and down, right? So back to Silicon Valley Bank. So these guys went out and they bought a bunch of these long-dated bonds, right? And they're underwater. Well, they're underwater short-term, right? Because what happened is those bond values went from when they paid $1,000 for it. It's still worth $1,000. It's a freaking solid, safe investment, and they're gonna get their $1,000 back in full, at the end of the decade, or in 2030 or 2032, depending on when they bought it. Just add 10 years from the date they bought it. In the meantime, they're just making a little bit of money, right? They're just making a little bit of money, which is $15 on 1,000, right? Multiply that out by billions, right? So it's really not a whole lot of money. But what happens is on your balance sheet, it shows the value of that investment is like down by 30%, right? So that was one problem. The second problem was as those rates went up, tech companies' evaluations across the board got hit. So a lot of Silicon Valley Bank's actual clients needed to pull money out because they gotta take care of shit, right? They gotta pay their employees or they got laid off and now they got to make a house payment. So they actually started withdrawing money, right? And then what happened is so much money got withdrawn with the downturn that they didn't match up on the liquidity ratio. Like they didn't have enough money on hand to be if 10% or whatever the percentage was of their peeps, of their customers came back to take money. So what happened is they were down on the bonds. And they're down on the bonds. People are pulling money out. They're like scratching their head like, okay, they had a loss of about $2 billion. They only needed about $2 billion in capital injected to just float this thing, right? Because not everybody needs to pull all their money out at once. Because like, where's that money going to go? You're going to go stuff it under the mattress? What are we doing here, right? Like everything was still on the up and up. But when they went out and they issued that $2 billion, like, oh, we have a little shortfall, it just caused panic. And it was a modern day bank run, which means they just started taking money out of Silicon Valley Bank and they started throwing it at JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citi, and Bank of America because everybody was like, oh, my money is going to be safe there because they could cash a check, not a Silicon Valley Bank. And then boom, before you know it, the bank is under. And it's funny because the other big three also are sitting on like $680 billion or something like that of unrealized losses. What saved them from blowing up right now is all the people pulling money out of here and putting it in there. Like the own people provided liquidity. It's kind of mind-blowing. It's really mind-blowing. So usually in a situation, what happens is exactly what they did. It was textbook. Friday, FDIC comes in, locks it up. Throughout the weekend, they start working a backdoor deal to sell the assets. Monday, the bank will open up under a new name and things will resume as normal. And that's pretty much what happened. And the question that, people like us should have is how many more banks are exposed to this type of risk? The thing is someone like JP Morgan Chase does not need any more money. They have too much money, right? That's why they're only offering 0.01, like 0.1% of a return on their savings account versus your local credit union who's offering, 3% or something, right? JP Morgan has put a lot of money to work, and their balance sheet reflects, they're not going to pay you big time for savings, because just like Silicon Valley Bank, they were only earning 1.5%, because when you have that much money, you have to put it somewhere. So the bank is going to keep that spread of your money. They're not going to give it back to you for putting savings account, especially the only way JP Morgan would do that, or they would implode, is everybody pulled their money out of JP Morgan Chase and started putting it into another bank. And then they would cause a liquidity crunch, right? That's what happens with these situations is these smaller banks, they rely heavily on deposits. If a small bank has a bank run, they're kind of screwed, right? And they get swallowed up. Their assets get swallowed up by bigger banks. And, on a political side, I definitely think it's very dangerous to have only 3 or 4 banks, be like too big to fail, because they could pull some BS like MasterCard and who was I think it was Visa that were like, oh, we're going to track gun purchases. It's like, what? No, you're not. You're not going to track shit. Your job is to hold my cash and give it to me when I need it, and I pay your little fees. You know what I mean? And when you allow these companies to be so strong and banking is very tied up at the top, they control us. They're going to have the biggest impact on our credit scores. They're going to be the biggest lenders to us when it comes to credit. Or they're going to have affiliates of smaller banks, and they're going to say, well, we don't like this guy's political opinion or whatever. And I know that's very draconian. That's very 1984-ish, but I've been a strong proponent of that in every single industry. There shouldn't be a duopoly or like a little oligarchy in any one realm. Like it's not going to be good for me and you in the very long run of things. And I'm a very long scheming type of person. I don't do anything short term. So I'm like, yeah, that's going to be a problem down the road. Why don't we stop that now? And it's tough because they have positioned themselves as too big to fail. They do. And if they go down, there is going to be a world of hurt, right? And, the biggest lessons that we learned here is like, okay, where were the shortcomings of Silicon Valley Bank, right? The shortcomings were regulators knew that these people had more than $250,000 in average for deposit. So they could have very easily said, hey, look, like your average client is, has $1 million in their bank account, right? Like that's 3 times as much as we're willing to insure. So maybe they should have told them like, hey, you need to keep like 50% of your cash in liquid and you can only do this 50. Or they say, hey, look, you're going to be buying these bonds at 1.5%. Every year you're going to be getting $15. You need to take like 30% of that, $5 of that, and put it on a hedge against high rates, right? You need to go buy calls on whatever financial product that there is that hedges you against these high rates. So if your coupon, if your bond starts dropping in price, someone else has to pay you. Somebody's always willing to make that bet. The thing is they got greedy and they're like, it's only 1.5%. It's so safe. We'll be good. We're going to put it all in our pocket. There was no proper risk management. And another thing is like, why the hell would you put billions of dollars of work to only make 1.5%? It just doesn't make sense to me. I'd rather just keep that money in cash, right? I'd rather just keep it in cash and just let it sit there, because you as a bank, it's not going to, if you needed to, you could charge, if you knew that it was that much of a problem, you could even charge your own personal clients and say, hey, look, we're going to charge you guys for parking this much cash here, or buy up a smaller firm. Like, I mean, you have that much goddamn money. You could have bought up another firm that allows like trading or allows another way for your capital to be put to work. Now, I don't claim to know exactly what banks could do, but I do know that I would stop putting in new accounts. And then if you really wanted to do right and be a staple in that community, you could have went to these guys and said, look, guys, we have a problem. Too much of your money is with us. We're going to either open up a second branch, you buy another bank, or, hey, look, you guys are going to have to move money out. There's so many things that could have been done, but definitely greed played a role in it. And I'm very upset at the fact that, and it has nothing to do with taxpayers or anything like that, but it's like these guys drove this bank into the ground, and they're supposed to be smart and they're MBAs and they know what they're doing, right? And yet they knew the bank was failing. They failed. And on Friday, right before the FDIC closed up, they gave themselves all bonuses. So it's like, Why would you be giving a bonus for doing a shit job? It's like, hey, I own a company and or I'm running a company for somebody else, and all of a sudden that company's gonna go to shit. But I'm like, hey, on the way out, fuck it, I'm gonna write myself $1 million check. It's like, bro, you didn't even do your basic job. A bonus means you went above and beyond what was expected of you. It was not expected of you to destroy a business. It was not expected of you to destroy a bank and possibly put, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people's lives at jeopardy because of your stupidity. And you should be rewarded for that? I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, call me old school, but that does not make any goddamn sense to me whatsoever. And one of the main problems I've been having, with all these bailouts and everything is the reality is, guys, it just screws us. And nobody else wants to talk about it, but I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. And here's why it will screw us. If you have done everything right in your life, I mean, you punched into your 9 to 5, you did your side hustle an extra 10 hours, you did something, whatever, you saved, you didn't take that trip, you didn't run up your credit card bills, you didn't buy that new car, you didn't buy that nice watch that you had your eye on. You've done everything you possibly could in your life the right way, and you saved over a nest egg. Like, you worked your ass off and you saved $100,000. Now your $100,000's in the bank. It's insured. Everything's good, right? Everything's all in the up and up. Now, you've done everything right in your life. When these banks messed up like they did in 2008 or like they're doing right now, if the government prints more money and comes to their aid and it saves them, and then the federal government or the Federal Reserve injects quantitative easing and they inject another trillion dollars, which they already done like what, 9 trillion, right? And they balloon other assets up, right? And they make everything else more expensive. What they're really doing is they're devaluing your $100,000 that you saved. They're not even allowing for you to have a chance to play, right? Because the reality is what they say is not what they do. And what they say is capitalism is so great because capitalism allows flows of capital to the most urgent needed areas, right? And that's why we have everything we have right now. I'm talking to you on a mic and, computer and internet and all that. And a part of it is a lie because we're not in real capitalism. If the government has to come out and bail private business out, then call it what it is. It's socialism. So if you're going to bail them out and do everything for them, then why don't you have national health care? Why don't you have free college? Why don't you bail out all these kids that, got screwed and lied to for, hey, you should take this degree. It's going to be good for you, right? And in the meantime, let's take away trades from schools and push them all this route. So who's going to bail them out? You see what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, they say, oh, everything is going to be so bad for everybody. Everything is going to be so bad. No, it's not. No, it's not. I call 100% bullshit. What would happen is if we let these big banks fall, all pandemonium, whoa. It's like, no. What would happen is things would sell for like 20 cents on the dollar. And anyone that did the right thing in society would then be able to move up, right? Because if I got $100,000 sitting in my bank and all of a sudden, let's say 2 or 3 or 4 of these big banks all went bust, Wells Fargo, all these guys went bust. We still have a banking system in this country. I have like 3 bank accounts with small banks, and they provide me with all the services that Chase does and everybody else does. I have an account with Chase too. So it would be there. Liquidity would be there. Like, the regular economy would still keep chugging along. All the BS would be wiped out. And then everybody that got wiped out, right? All the big wigs that got fired, everybody that got let go, all their assets that got seized, they would realize like, oh shit, we can't run amok. We actually have to be responsible in what we do. And then people like us that have saved, that have done the right thing, if we go and we start creating wealth and we have a chance to start moving up, then it's on us to continue to do the right thing. Because if we don't, we'll face the same consequences as they did. But if you keep bailing them out, you never allow them to get off their high horse or get off that mountain. You're just propping up the rich always and always, and they have no consequences. And look, Central Valley Community Bank is a very unique situation because do I think regular people and regular depositors deserve to have their money taken away when they did nothing wrong? They didn't take any crazy bets. No, it's not. And they should have been, and they did. Thankfully, they were. All I'm trying to say is next time there's a liquidity crunch or there's a crisis and Wells Fargo or JP Morgan or these guys want to run to us, we should not bail them out. Let it burn. Because what has any of this done for us? All it's done for us is made housing impossible. It's made inflation go through the roof, right? It's put us all in crazy amounts of debt, and we became slaves. Like, if you do not own an asset today, you are a modern day slave. There's no nice way to say it, man. Like, if you're not, like, I'm sorry, it's not like I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm not trying to be mean, but that's just the reality. Like, if you are always having to work for your money, right? That means you're giving your time up. You are literally giving up 40, 50 hours of your week away from your friends, away from your family, away from the things that you want to do to earn capital to then be able to do what you need to do. But if they keep devaluing that capital, what they're really doing is devaluing your time, right? That you have no value. You as a worker have no value. You're barely maintaining, or you're barely able to move up like one notch, barely, right? That's a broken system. They've turned, old school slavery with chains and whips and stuff like that to modern day slavery, which is just like, you're okay. You deserve this little box, and that's all you're ever going to be, right? And they've created a whole system around protecting that ideology of like, stay in your box. The more we let them devalue, the more we let them get bailouts, the less our time is worth, the less our money is worth. And this is the biggest case for Bitcoin. This is why you're going to see Bitcoin continue to surge. Because if I had extra cash right now, I would be buying Bitcoin. Because we all know the system is bullshit. We're just going along with it. It's because majority of people don't care. And that's the sad part, right? Majority of people, they want to just do what they want to do. They want to get their lick in when they get their lick in. For them, it's like, yeah, none of this means anything, bro. They're more worried about chasing the opposite sex. You know what I mean? Getting the little drug fix in, or getting their alcohol fix in, or whatever it is, whatever vice it is they want to do. And it's just about making it to the weekend. And that's it. That's all their life is making it to the weekend. And it's like, I mean, even that is kind of wild, because you think about an average life being 75 years. 75 years. So if you're 30 years old watching this, right? Let's do the math here. 75 years, the average lifespan. If you're 30 watching this, you have 45 years left. That means 45 New Year's, 45 4th of July's, 45 Easters, 45 Thanksgivings, 45 whatever the hell is left, right? That's all you have left. And I'm willing to sacrifice 10 to 15 years of that to then live in a great life for the back half, right? A lot of these people are just living day to day, and they've given up and they feel boxed in. And honestly, now I can't even blame them. But that's why I'm preaching this. This is why I'm tell everybody possible, like, if the government isn't going to change their attitudes, they're going to keep bailing out, they're going to keep devaluing. If your money is going to keep getting devalued and you got no chance, the only chance you have is buy some type of asset and just hold on to it for dear life to protect yourself. Otherwise, you are forever going to be a slave. And some people don't care. That's fine. That's fine. Not everybody is meant to own property and own assets, and some people are just meant to live, and that's okay if that's you. I'm not. You don't got to be like everybody else. Like, you got to live your life the way you want to live it. What I'm calling out is the bullshit. Is like, the way the system is made right now, it's just not made for everyone to have an equal opportunity to win, and it all starts with the money. It always starts and ends with the money. It starts and ends with how they spend, and it's not just Wall Street and the rich and the elite. It's also these crazy politicians. Like, there's no reason for us to be sending billions of dollars, bro, to Ukraine. And if you look at Iraq, if you look at Afghanistan, and you look at all the other little dumb wars that we've had and the tiffs and whatever we had in between, you're probably talking about $4 trillion. Probably a lot higher. Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine now, all the other little conflicts that we've had in between, easily $4 trillion. That $4 trillion could have paid for all of our student loan debt for our youth right now that are like 45 and under, all of it. And would have had way more than enough money to upgrade all of our school systems. All of them. Like, what blows my mind is, why on earth are we not teaching critical thinking skills and life skills in high schools? We go there and we learn the same shit and we get pumped out, and we're expecting, like, if you graduate high school and you don't know what a credit score is, you don't know what it is to build credit, you don't know how to apply for a home loan or use a FAH program or even apply for community college or even look up like regular trade schools, the system has failed you. The system's already failed you because first off, it's a learning curve, right? Like only like my parents taught me that because they were in business, they were whatever. They sat down, they said, okay, we're going to build your credit at 17, 18. I was buying, at 18 years old, this is before the law changed to 21. I was buying all the cigarettes, for our convenience store. And we were paying it off every month. And I was already building credit. And I was like, I already knew like, oh, I wanted to, and I needed to have this credit. Majority of people didn't know that. Right. And so I already had that that head start. It's not that it's fair, it's whatever. It's like everybody should have access to that education. Everybody should have an equal opportunity to say, hey, you know what? And because the crazy part is it's not even about how smart you are. That's the sad part. Like all it is discipline. I swear to God, you don't have to have 100 IQ to own rental property, bro. You do not have to have a crazy – no, you just have to be disciplined and you have to know how to save. And you got to know that things take time. And, if you're disciplined, you already understand that. If you're a disciplined person, you already understand like you're working out, your eating habits, your sleeping habits, everything. You already understand like there's certain things you got to do in life to get to a certain point. There's no shortcut. But where the disadvantage comes in is even if you were a person with a lower IQ, but you weren't even given the information to help start and build your life the right way, you're already way behind the curve because you're going to go out, you're going to get a credit card, you might run it up, and no one tells you about credits or this and this and that. Maybe you're living off the minimum payments and you racked up too much debt, you missed a couple, now your credit score's behind, now you can't get a card, now you can't get reliable transportation to go to a job, and you see the spiral just keeps spiraling, it keeps spiraling. And I think it's really sad, man. I think we could live in a world where everybody could be okay. I really do. Not all over the world. I'm not going to lie to myself. I truly believe there's only so much time, energy, and resources. Not everybody's going to have a crazy high standard of life. But everybody in the United States of America, if you're born as a U.S. citizen, yeah, I definitely think you have a right to be able to own a home, own a decent car, take a vacation once a year, right? Have a little pocket money or savings, right? And have access to healthcare and education. Like those things are like very like, I'm not saying you're going to go drive a freaking Rolls Royce or you're going to have like a 3,000 square foot house or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not saying all those things. I'm saying like just average normal life, man. Just like a regular humble life. Like every single citizen, no matter your color, your gender, your whatever you believe, your religion, you should have a right to be able to attain that in your lifetime. Don't get me wrong. You still have a chance. It's just a lot harder. There's a lot more setbacks. You need a lot more help in your life outside of what the system is, right? Because the school's not going to teach you that. And if you already come from a broken home or you come from, not the best upbringing, you're not going to learn that there. And I do believe in mental fatigue, bro. I do really believe that, your mentality about things is everything, right? Like if you tell yourself enough, like I'm a piece of shit, you start believing it. If you tell yourself like I could do this, I could do more, I deserve better, you believe it. Like that's 110% your subconscious, right? So if you never had anyone in your life step up to you and say, dude, I believe in you, you can do this, and all you've known is negativity, it's going to be hard to break that cycle. That's real shit, man. That's not like, oh, they could do it, they could whatever. Yeah. Someone that's saying that shit probably hasn't went through the hardest times in their life, and they have gone through the hardest times in their life. They'll be a lot more humble. They'll be a lot more understanding. Like, you know what? I did get help. Had I not got that help, I probably couldn't have done it. Don't get me wrong. They still worked really, really hard to get to where they are, but they had help along the way. And help isn't just money, right? It's not just about the money. Help could be just having somebody there that believes in you, man, that listens to you, that talks to you, that gives you the right advice at the right times. Like, hey, man, you could do this, but think about this because of this, this, and this. And you're like, oh, shit, I never thought about it that way. If you don't have that positivity in your life, it's going to be hard for you to do anything. It really is, man. It really is. And, and all this is all related. It all comes back down to the money and the finances and the way shit works. And, it's like you got to take advantage of every opportunity you got. But when opportunities are being robbed from you, it's kind of hard not to be mad. And thinking longer term, it's like, that's the one thing that scares me is you want to collapse a nation. This is how you would do it, right? You create this gap so wide between rich and poor. You make everything super divided, right? And you let people starve. And eventually people are going to wake up and they're going to say, enough is enough. If there's somebody out there today and they haven't never gotten arrested, never gotten a DUI, they've never done drugs, right? They've gotten their high school education, they've punched in 9 to 5 where they work, and they actually give a damn if they've tried to work and they try to move up. And it's been 10 plus years they've been doing that, right? And they're still working paycheck to paycheck, and they still weren't able to build a savings, and they don't spend crazy. Like, I mean, they're still human beings, right? They still need to buy clothes. They still need to take a small vacation. They still need certain things. I'm not talking about some guy that, makes $100,000 and every year they blow $20,000 every year just to blow it, right? I'm talking about like if you've consistently tried your hardest and you haven't even been able to live a modest, humble life, that's going to grow with resentment and hate towards whatever the system is right now. And that's the type of shit that destroys societies. It destroys them. We have to look at it like everybody is like our brother and sister. Like, we're a part of this together because we are one society, bro. Like, as much as everybody doesn't want to admit it or do want to admit it or whatever, like, the area where you live, the people that are around you, like, your kids are going to interact with them, right? Like, that homeless person on the street is going to have an impact on your family, your kids, your mental state, everything, right? Like, we should be judged on how we treat the lowest. We should be judged on how we treat the lowest in our society. And there's a lot to be said about how America treats the lowest members of their society. Every Democrat will, preach, Republicans too, like, oh, we got to take care of our homeless veterans. We got to take care of our homeless population. Not shit has been said about it or done about it. But yet when they want to get shit done, 100 billion plus sent to Ukraine, snap of a freaking finger. What has been instituted for the homeless around here? Nothing. And the reason why I'm so big on the homeless is because they are the perpetual cycle that needs to be broken. If we can take care of the lowest members of our society and get them to be productive and get them to have a normal life, then we'll probably be able to solve everything else. But if we can't even solve that problem, then what the hell are we going to solve in the school systems or anything else? Like, it doesn't make, come on, man. Come on. Because ultimately, if you could solve the homelessness crisis, because that would be the biggest fear of any entrepreneur or any business person or any risk taker is like, I'm about to start this business, but everything could go bad. I could end up homeless. Or I'm about to take this job or take this risk on this new job, but I could end up homeless. And that's going to keep people from not trying. But if we knew that there's a big safety net, that if you were homeless, there was a quick road, and there's programs in place to recovery, and you could get back on your feet, we'd probably have a lot more entrepreneurship, a lot more people willing to take a risk and saying, you know what, I'm gonna go do this because I know that there's going to be a safety net or a path for me to come back and be where I am. What do I lose? I lose 4 or 5 years of my life, 2-3 years of trying everything, and in about a year to get back to where I was, and then I could try it again, or I could say, you know what, that's good enough. Let me go up the corporate ladder or whatever, right? But it starts with taking care of the lowest members of our society, and we never did that. And to wrap this up with 08, the Federal Reserve could have very easily given a 3% fixed mortgage to every single person that was under foreclosure with no other money down, no nothing to save the banking system. Let me repeat that. The government could have very easily given a 3% 30-year loan in 2008 to everybody that took a loan out and said, hey, we're going to charge you 3%. We'll make it 40 years. We'll make an exception, one-time exception. We're going to do a people bailout. Fuck it. Make it 50 years. 50 years. 50 years. 3% fixed interest rates. You own a home. We're going to pause payments for a year. Screw it. The economy is going to collapse anyways, or 6 months. You know what I mean? Make it interest only, a year, because everybody was still paying their payments when it was interest only and shit like that. So we're going to do a year of interest only. You'll pay the bank, you pay the bank. You go down to your local bank office. We'll set it up a portal through the SBA, right? You go create your username, your social security. The banker on the back end will submit your loan docs. You get approved. Your loan, your payments all go through the SBA or whatever organization, or through HUD would probably be easier, right? Go through HUD. And everyone that took a loan out at any amount, you get 3%, 50 years, you get bailed out. Everybody else going forward, you got to go through these new regulations. You got to put 20% down, or you got to put the 5%. You got to actually qualify and do good. That would have been a people bailout. The banks could have easily took those bad loans off of their books. Everything could have worked out. But instead, we just bailed the banks out and we let people out to dry. And I think going forward, the government should be very, very cautious on bailing out any more corporations before it bails the people out. Because it's shit like this that really drives a society apart. And that's the last thing, that I would want to see is like that whole, because what happened out of Occupy Wall Street is the leftist movement that we have now. It just kind of lost its way. It just kind of fizzled out, right? But who knows what another movement can start when another, a situation like this happens. And you know what, screw it, I got a little bit of time. I want to wrap this up with one more thing, which was the tax, Biden's tax plan and this and this and that. Look, man, across the world, corporate taxes are low. Even countries like Denmark and Sweden realize you got to keep corporations pumping and going in order for, productivity to happen. And the way that corporations are structured is like you create your filing or whatever, even your LLC, and then you have that entity right here, right? And you have everybody else that owns a piece of that entity, right? Shareholders, whatever, right? When you only charge that corporation 15%, okay, so let's say they make $100 million and they're all clear cut, right? And they get to keep 85 million of that, right? So they paid their 15, they keep 85. The corporation has to decide what they're going to do with that $85 million. They're either going to expand business, invest in new things, or they're going to pay their shareholders a little bit of money. If they invest in business and they expand services and products, that's better for everybody. Why? More jobs created in the economy. We have growth. We get new product innovation. More money is being made. Option number two, let's say they take that whole 85 million and they pay out all their shareholders. Now, all their shareholders will get, assigned dividends, or they'll get profits, depending on everything set up. But then that monies that they got is going to be taxed at their individual rate. So the government is still going to collect the tax no matter what. The difference is if you keep taxes low on corporations, you allow them to continue to grow. Because if corporations, let's say, get a 50% tax, so if they made $100 million, they got to pay $50 million to the government. What you're saying is the government could spend this $50 million better than that corporation can. Right? And maybe they can. Maybe the government is going to put it into programs or whatever, but that money is going to be spent. It's either going to be, because that 85 million can't sit on the books of the corporation forever. It's just not, shareholders are going to be looking at that and saying, hey, give us some of that because we're owners of this company. So either pay us out or put that money to work. I am in 100% favor of keeping corporate taxes as low as we can. I mean, I think 15% is very fair. I think it's very, very fair. And it allows, the government to collect a little something, something. It allows the corporation enough breathing room to continue to grow. Right? And when it's ready to pay and it goes down to the person that owns a piece of that corporation, they're going to pay tax anyways. That's why it's double taxation for corporations. Now, on the individual tax rate, sure, if you want to raise it, I mean, like I said, to me, it's not a big deal. It's never been about paying tax. If you're making money, you're making money, right? Like it's okay. The biggest thing has always been is like, how the hell are they spending the money? Right? Like, if you're going to say, okay, every dollar after $1 million is taxed at 50 cents, and I'm a person that has the power to make $1 million plus a year. Like, if I make $2 million a year, that means I get to, on that second million, I pay half to the government, half I keep. It's okay. Like, I'm still going to do good in life. I'm still going to be able to do all the things I want to do. My only problem would be is, where's that $500,000 going? Is that $500,000 going to go to schools and homeless, or is that going to go to the Ukraine war? So if they're going to do update on the tax system, or they're going to charge more or whatever, and we're going to vote on it, that extra percentage, we need to identify where that tax is going. And one last thing I'll say about it, on our pay stubs right now, all we see is Social Security, Medicare, and then you got like your workers' comp and all that. I want to see a detailed list. Like, I want that pay stub to be 2 pages long that says, where is this dollar, or where is my penny going exactly? And it should show, oh, United States military takes 20%. In the military, we're paying for Air Force, Navy, Army, weapons, Iraq war, Afghanistan war, this war, and we're going to see those numbers, because as soon as Americans see where their tax dollars are actually going, they're going to be pissed. They're going to be pissed, and that's a law that needs to be a part of that, is we need to see on our pay stubs, where are our taxes going? Where are our taxes going? And reality is like, our system right now is really archaic. Like, it's 2023. You could build an app very easily with a bunch of authentication features, right? Social Security, driver's license, passwords, emails, and phone number to identify you as a person. We have Social Security offices across the country and DMVs across the country, so we could use those as you could show up and fill the app out in front of everybody, and then, or in front of the person, and you get your codes. And you should be able to vote right then and there. Like, if there's a bill out in Congress today, you should be able to click, vote yes or no on that bill. And if you don't vote, or you're too busy with life, that's okay. The people that have time, they'll look at it. You got to trust another citizen, to help you make that vote. And then the congressperson is just someone that's just the mouthpiece representing you. That's it. There's so many, I could go way deeper into how the app could work, how like, if you're in this area, when you open the app up, you see a list of all of your representatives. You can send them a DM right then and there about your concerns, right? And you can see what bills they've put forward, and you can see how they voted, right? And it can work like the electoral college system, or just like a regular voting system, is like whatever bill's out there in your local county, there'll be a poll, and it's like, okay, you have until, Wednesday night at midnight to vote for this. This is the bill. You could read it. And if majority of, that person could, like, if that person is representing 100,000 people and 70,000 people say vote no on that bill, then that person should vote no. Or if they vote yes, we'll know that that person's not representing what we're saying. We're going to get him out of office, and or that person could have to write a rebuttal on why they voted that way, so we could be informed. That's a very simple fix, right? Like, and this is not shit that's out of the ordinary. It's just people are too freaking lazy, bro. And the system works for the small few. So it's going to be very hard to change the system if your pockets are being aligned. But I think it's important to continue to talk about it. I think it's important to try to push these things forward, because if we don't, change stops, innovation stops. And at that point, then what's the point of humanity? If we've already done it all and lived it all and everything's already done, why are we continuing? You know what I mean? Like, it's never going to stop. We should always strive to get better. I don't know, guys. I'm sorry about the bond details if that became a little too complicated, but shit, dude, if you made it this far, show me some love, man. Share this on your page, share it with your friends and family, and, shoot me a DM and just, let me know what you thought about the episode. Second episode in the books. All right, man. Appreciate you guys. Stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Hopefully I could probably do this, once a week. That's what I'm shooting for, but we'll see. End session for all.